Hey y'all, we are on page 80 of our Roots book. We are doing Loqu or Loq, meaning to speak. So, blah, blah, blah. We're going to hear about some words that help us remember that. Let's look at the top of the page. A soliloquy, from the root sol meaning alone and loqu meaning to speak, is a speech given by an actor, alone on the stage, to reveal private thoughts and emotions. The most famous soliloquy, of course, is Hamlet's To Be or Not to Be, when Hamlet reveals his feelings to the audience. Another soliloquy, this one from the Shakespearean play Romeo and Juliet, is Romeo's speech upon seeing Juliet. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Oh, that was really sweet, right, guys? So, we will learn a little bit more about soliloquy here in a moment, but let's move on to our first word. Our first word is colloquial. Go ahead and highlight the roots. Call meaning together and loqu meaning to speak. It is an adjective, and we're going to underline all of those definitions because they all fit in this case. So, language used when people speak together informally, informal or conversational, idiomatic or vernacular. So when we talk about colloquial, we're talking about like colloquial language. For instance, here in Texas, we say y'all a lot of the time, right? So y'all is a colloquialism. It's a word that is colloquial. We also say all y'all, which, as some of my kids and I talked about last year, isn't actually technically correct. So FYI, thought you should know. We also have idioms that fall under this. So you probably studied idioms in 6th grade more than anything. Why did I go and paint myself into a corner? Why are you painting a floor, right? So that idiom, paint myself into a corner, doesn't actually refer to painting anything. It's talking about when you set yourself up to end up cornered, right? So, colloquial. Next we have colloquium, noun. Now look at those different endings. That's how you're going to remember the difference, because they do have the same two roots. Call meaning together and loqu meaning to speak. Highlight those roots. There's a literal meaning here. Don't underline that. It says a speaking together. It's kind of how we might remember what it means, but it's a lot more specific than that. So a colloquium these days is an academic seminar on some field of study led by several experts. Go ahead and underline that. And you can see here, like, a colloquium might look kind of like a business meeting sometimes. This is probably a panel within a colloquium. Or it may just be a small seminar that is also called a colloquium. Or there may be like lecture style in a colloquium. Okay? I like the sentence here. They attended the colloquium on the writer Ernest Hemingway. Very nice. Remember to use those sentences to help you study too, okay guys? Eloquent. I like this word. Comes from the roots e meaning out and loqu meaning to speak. Like to speak out. It is an adjective, so it's a word used to describe something else. It means fluent or persuasive. The audience was moved by the eloquent speaker. We've had a lot of eloquent speakers here in our history. So you hear we read a lot of Martin Luther King's works last year, and he was a very eloquent speaker. You remember looking at all those tools that he used, all the rhetorical tools, right? He was very fluent, as in his words flowed together, they made sense, they sounded good together. And he was very persuasive, right? Sometimes President Lincoln was referred to as the eloquent president. And then Winston Churchill, of course, who we worked very closely with during the Second World War. Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. Very, very eloquent and persuasive. So, eloquent. Then we have grandiloquent, which grand equals grand, and loqu means to speak. So to speak grandly, right? It's an adjective, and it means marked by a lofty, extravagantly colorful style. So highlight those two roots and underline that meaning. Our sentence here, the Duke tries to impress Huckleberry Finn with his grandiloquent speech. Right, there's that. There's also this really, really entertaining thing that I found called grandiloquent word of the day. So we have our main word here, of course, pompous or extravagant in language, style, or manner, especially in a way that is intended to impress. And so they found a lot of words that are meant solely for that purpose, very big words that we never use that kind of sound a little bit extravagant, like jackanapes, saucy, mischievous, or impudent child. I liked this one, a flamfoo, a gaudily dressed woman who is operating under the delusion that she is wearing haute couture. And then échinate, spiny or prickly, bristling. So you should try those out. Do some grandiloquent speaking today. All right, guys? I'm trying, you can see there you go. Loquacious. I can't think of any 8th graders who can be described as loquacious. Loquacious only has, of course, the main root in it. It is an adjective, and it has a very clear meaning, talkative. Our sentence here, it was my luck to get a loquacious bridge partner. I don't play bridge. I don't know if that's an advantage or a disadvantage. I'm sorry, guys. It might be advantageous to have a loquacious partner in some games because it would keep your opponents distracted. Perhaps. I don't know. I did enjoy this. This man was talked to death. He clearly had a very loquacious friend. Very loquacious. He died. They talked to him so much. It was horrible. Soliloquy. We talked about this already. From the roots sol, meaning alone, and loqu, to speak. It is a noun. Remember, these parts of speech really help you with figuring out what word fits best in what sentence, okay? A soliloquy is a speaking alone to oneself, as in a drama, or a monologue, right? So we have Hamlet here. That's the most famous one. We talked about that a minute ago, right? But the thing, and yeah, to be or not to be, that is the question. You'll see he speaks to a skull. That happens a lot. But Hamlet and this particular soliloquy are such an icon that we actually see it in so many ways. Like, look, we have Lego Hamlet. Or, very famous actor here, doing a soliloquy to the letter B on Sesame Street. So hopefully you have heard this word before because of your theater class, and that would be awesome because it would be easier to remember that way, right? Last, but certainly not least, and quite probably the creepiest, we have the word ventriloquist, from the roots ventre meaning stomach and loqu meaning to speak. So to speak from one's stomach, it's interesting. It is a noun because it refers to a person. So in this case, the person who makes the puppet talk. Ventriloquist technically is one who speaks so that the sounds seem to come from somewhere other than the speaker's mouth. So it doesn't necessarily have to include like a dummy or a puppet that they make talk. They can make their voice sound like it's somewhere else, and that's ventriloquism. But we generally talk about a ventriloquist as someone who uses some kind of prop, person or animal that they make talk, right? Our sentence, the ventriloquist was able to speak without moving his lips while manipulating the lower jaw of the puppet in his lap. All right. Hopefully this has been helpful. Remember to go back through, double check that you have highlighted all your roots. We should have call meaning together, loqu to speak, e meaning out, grand meaning grand, sol meaning alone, and ventre meaning stomach. You will have your first roots quiz next week. And you need to make sure you study all the old roots as well, okay? It's very, very important because the old roots can show up for the rest of 8th grade, okay? Alrighty, best of luck.